Let's begin this morning with a conversation with Mr. Wahab Shitu, a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's right here in the studio with us. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Dr. Wahab Shitu.
Dr. Wahab Shitu, that's on me. I apologize. Good morning and thank you for being here.
Good morning, Nigerians.
A number of issues, first of all. I will come to one question that I know that Jeffrey wants to ask you, but the first thing that I would like to ask you, this election is supposedly about the people. How prepared do you think people are? One of the concerns that's known to us and Jeffrey has raised this morning is that, and it's a troubling issue for INEC as well because we've asked them before, that's the fact that in the category of elections, patronage by the people, the local government elections comes at the basest, lowest. In other words, it's the one that the people patronize the least in the country. Sometimes maybe like 10, 15, tops 20% of voters come out for local government elections. But this time we are giving all the attention to it. How much awareness do you think, from what you can see, was given to this election in Rivers State?
Thank you very much. I think if the attention being given to this election, the local government election, is not the required attention that ought to be given, there should be a matter for concern because of all the categories of elections that we have as the impact on the people. The one that is most important and most fundamental is the local government election. Because that is where the grassroots people live. That is the election that determines the quality of primary health care, the quality of education, and other indices or the indicators of development. So that level of awareness ought to be high, supposedly, because democracy and the conduct of election is supposed to be about dividends to the people.
But do you think it is anything high?
It is not as high as would ordinarily be expected. And there are a lot of factors for this. Voters' apathy and lack of sufficient political education. And this ought to be the primary responsibility of INEC and then the various electoral bodies, apart from the role that political parties themselves have to play in sensitizing the people, in sustaining the level of awareness that will make people interested. I think generally the conduct of election, not just local government election, is heavily challenged by this apathy. And it's a major issue. It's not something that can be trivialized. The democracy is supposed to be government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The people are supposed to take ownership of the process. They are supposed to be, so when people now lay back, or when they show lack of sufficient interest in the process, and I think that calls for a lot of concern. It means that all the agencies, in charge of the management and conduct of our elections, or in charge of the management and conduct of our democratic structures and institutions, ought to now know that that is a vote of no confidence in them, and they should buckle in order to be able to change the narrative.
Okay.
Because if the people who are supposed to be interested, eager to come out, to come and vote, are drawing back, then we should find out why this is so. What are the things that we need to do that we are not doing? or what more can be done in order to be, because it's an anomaly. It's something that is ought not to be the norm. People should be eager to come out, to come and vote for candidates of their choice, because the power they have lies in the ballot box, ballot paper. That is the power they have to be able to elect representatives of their choices, to be able to even vote out people they don't like or they don't want them to, because the election is about the will of the people. So I think a lot still needs to be done by everyone, particularly the electoral bodies, in sensitizing the people. And then governance too. It's about service delivery quality. Governance at all levels, whether at the federal, state, local government level, it's about service to the people. People must be able to see the impact of governance. If you ask people to come out to vote, then you interrogate the question, what has happened to previous efforts? You know, deployed by the people coming out to vote. Are they seeing the result of the previous, sacrifices they have made?
You just took the words of Tamino right here,
Yes.
who is already reaching us already on X, saying, Election day, Rivers State, boys must be on the road playing football. I don't blame them. When people begin to see the benefits of voting, they will take our elections seriously.
Yes.
This looks like a lockdown city. Well, you can also contribute to this conversation this morning. Just mention, make your contribution and just mention Channels TV, at Channels TV on X. We'll be able to take some of your comments as well. So it's like
So it is not when elections are about to take place that political office holders and even political parties suddenly will realize that the people matter.
Okay, Chelsea.
You understand me? It is not going during elections.
There's a question agitating the mind of...
the senior advocate is a familiar territory for him, all of this. So one of the things that I want you to speak to, which is even of an additional concern. So in Section 9 of the Electoral Act, which is what brings a relationship between INEC and RISEC, or INEC and the state electoral commissions, which is basically saying INEC is the one empowered to maintain, register political parties, do CVR and all of that. That's why, at the end of the day, the state independent electoral commission always refer to INEC to get the register of the election of the voters to be able to conduct elections. So, Senior Advocate, one of the questions or concerns raised by the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, was to the effect that, look, he was speaking to the chairman of the State Independent Electoral Commission in one of his meetings, and he said to them, look, as a matter of fact, what you're doing in your state affects us as INEC. Of course, you know, INEC has its own battle in terms of crisis of confidence, just like every other institution. The way you conduct yourself affects us. Yes, we give you the register, we do our part, but the way you conduct yourself, and it's anyone citing even River State, where the notice of election is clearly in violation, because he was talking about the duration of time. He said, when you give people 30 days or 21 days or whatever it is you're giving them, when do you want them to start doing primaries, to start campaigning, mobilize the people? So he was saying, like, almost saying unconstitutionality in that sense. What do you make of it when we're seeing this kind of scenario? Because in addition to bad governance, as it is said, these issues around timing, notices, is also a big issue, even in the Lagos State election.
I agree with you. The answer lies in our understanding of what democracy is all about. Democracy and the conduct of elections, including all of these issues that you have raised, ought to be premised on respect for the rule of law. There's no way you can have a democracy that is self-sustaining without respect for the rule of law. So if you have rules in place, you must respect those rules. You have provisions in place for the conduct of the election, then you must respect those provisions. And then you must also ensure, and this is for legislators, those who are in charge of making our laws, that you provide as much as possible for situations that will arise that will derogate from the rules. You understand me? You should have,
Maybe remember like a caveat?
yes. That is why election into our various, legislative bodies also primarily also depend on the quality of people we put there in terms of, and we are not saying just lawyers, but seasoned professionals who understand what the legal provisions are. You don't vote in people who cannot even appreciate what legal provisions and their responsibilities are in governance. I think primarily some of these problems arise because of the silence, relative silence, in most of the provisions regulating the conduct of our elections. They do not provide for certain situations that would then arise. That is why legislation must be a detailed process, a very exhaustive process, where you look at all kinds of scenarios that could arise and then make provisions for them before those things are contemplated. Again, we must also learn the culture of asking our courts to interpret quickly some of our provisions, and that is likely the function of state attorney generals and even the attorney general of the federation. There is this jurisdiction that is rarely exercised, the jurisdiction to determine constitutional questions. That's a very very powerful jurisdiction available to state attorney generals and even the federal attorney general, including concerned constitutional lawyers. You recall that there was a lot of activism or public interest litigations in those days, and I think those things have to be. We need to begin to engage that process. A lot of our provisions are not yet tested in the law court. There's a lot of ambiguity as to interpretation. You will interpret it differently. He will interpret it differently. I will interpret, and looking at the way the legislation is drafted, you cannot say any of this interpretation is wrong. But it could be wrong. The only body that can then say this is the one that is acceptable, this is the one that satisfies the intention of the draftsman, is the court.
And sometimes I find that a little comical, because sometimes you just wonder, hey, this thing is written in black and white and it's in plain nursery school English, yet some people are still going to interpret it.
No, because there are various rules of interpretation of a statute. We have the literary rule of interpretation, interpreting the statute, in which case you just rely on the ordinary grammatical meaning. Then of course, there's the golden rule of interpretation, which goes beyond the literary meaning. And then there's also the mischief rule. You look at the purpose for which the legislation was designed, and what it was intended to achieve in your interpretation. Of course, there's also in constitutional law, there's the purposive interpretation of constitutional provision. You look at the purpose that law is designed to achieve, and then you use that as the vehicle for interpreting it. You understand me? So that's what lawyers are. We're lawyers. We are wired in the.
Are lawyers part of the problem?
No, I think that's the ingenuity of the lawyer. The lawyer deploys advocacy, deploys legal reasoning, deploys a lot of jurisprudence in carrying out his job. That's why lawyers who advocate will argue, and then it is for the judge, the judice, to then say, oh, out of all these arguments, this is the law.
Well, maybe one good thing that might come from what you're saying, Dr. Shitu, is Maybe more lawyers should go to the National Assembly and State Houses of Assembly.
Not just
Maybe
lawyers.
we'll have peace. We'll come back to that some other
not
time.
just
But
lawyers. Let me correct that impression.
Okay. No, I'm just saying.
Yes,
I'm just
yes,
saying.
more lawyers, yes, but more seasoned professionals. Let me tell you, the governance is not for the law-making process.
It's the understanding that you spoke about.
The understanding, for instance, if you look at the training of the accountant, for instance, very rigorous.
Exactly. Okay, but there is this.
The training of even the journalist.
There's this question that I think might be giving the election in Rivers State this morning some a little more attention than normal. I don't remember the last time, maybe in a while, that we've had local government elections in a state that is run by a sole administrator under a state of emergency. Now, that gives this particular case some uniqueness. Don't you think so?
Yeah, it is. You see, we must be careful. Certain questions have been submitted for adjudication before a court of competent jurisdiction. And let me sound a note of warning. When questions have been submitted for determination before a court of competent jurisdiction, in a forum like this, we cannot begin to interrogate such questions until a pronouncement is made. One way or the other by the court. Okay. If we do that, that would be judicial. I mean, that would be that would be
the peculiarity of this.
I'm just sending this note of warning.
Okay.
And not only for this purpose.
Yeah, Doctor.
I'm warning myself.
Yeah.
I'm warning you.
No, Doctor.
I'm also warning everybody out there who might be tempted to fall into this grave.
The warning
I've read what's going on in the River State.
Yes.
Extensively.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
Doctor, we'll come back to it. In fact, we'll speak to it based on a judgment, not on what is in the court.
Okay.
On a judgment.
Okay.
So that we can speak to.
Okay.
But let's get to River State and speak with the chairman of the River State Independent Electoral Commission, Mr. Michael Ode, joins us. Mr. Ode, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning.
Good morning, Zusa. I know you have a busy day, and thank you for taking our time to just come and give us heads up. So let's begin with the very basic of level of preparations as far as the elections are concerned. We saw your, I think, the presser yesterday talking about citizens should come out to vote and all of that. But just give us an overview of what you're dealing with today.
The issuance of the notice of election and the release of the election timetable as revised, and after that we started engaging with our stakeholders. We met with the security agencies, we started our procurement processes, we started the recruitment of ad hoc staff, we did training, we engaged with civil society organizations, we did town hall meetings, we did road shows, we had ISS meetings, and we also had a ceremony where political parties signed an undertaking to be of good conduct during the elections. And all those processes have culminated today where we are to do the implementation as was planned.
I have for you is a question that I've been asking earlier, and that is, what would you say is the level of preparedness, particularly in terms of voter awareness? Elections, local government elections are usually not so much given attention by the people.
As a matter of fact, if you had been listening to radios, we actually saturated the airwaves. We made sure that our public affairs department was fully engaged. We reached out to other stations, and from time to time we made sure that the public was kept abreast of our processes and procedures, and we hope that that will resonate today with the outcome.
But engagement, it's one thing to give out information, it's another thing to confirm or affirm whether or not the people are resonating with the information you are putting out. Do you have any response whatsoever as to how the people are likely to respond today?
Well, I'm not a clairvoyant, but I believe that with our interactions with them, particularly the political parties, the traditional rulers, for instance, also called out people to make sure they key into the processes and be peaceful during this exercise. And yes, you may not have 100% acceptance in terms of voter participation, but relatively, I think the voter turnout will be encouraging, hopefully today.
Ms. Alder, so we're going to wind down with you because we know you have a busy day. I know that your appointment was a very tumultuous process, given that you're not from Rivers State, but that's not the conversation for today. We're going to have that conversation later. But where I'm going to is the time you were appointed, now that you're conducting election, quite a very short period. I remember your meeting, CIEC meeting with the INEC chairman. If you listen to what we're saying, it has raised a concern about the shortness of time and even the constitutionality of the notice of election. How are you working around these landmines?
I didn't have any, I was not part of that meeting, so I won't comment on that.
Okay, so now that you had a very short period to prepare, don't you think it's going to affect the turnout of the level of participation of the people, given the shortness of time to quickly rush through the entire process?
Well, I don't call it a rush as such. We reached out to the voting population and we did all we can from our own end. What else could we have done is to saturate the airwaves, to engage the stakeholders, and the message of participation, peaceful participation for that matter, was spread across the 23 local government areas. So I'm confident that the process is going to be seamless today.
Now, one of the things that's been concerning for a bit, Mr. Ode, is that sometimes electoral materials do not get to riverine areas in good enough time. Is there any plan that you've made differently this time around to ensure that there is no delay to when they receive the materials, far and near, in River State?
Okay. You know, this time around there is a different paradigm. We made sure that 2 weeks to the elections, we had a memorandum of understanding with the National Union of Maritime Workers, and we have already paid for the boats, about 300 of them, and they have been distributed to the 12 riverine local governments in River State. And as I'm speaking to you, they've been activated since morning. And that we expect, having done that, that the punctuality index in terms of beginning of poll and closing will be considerably high this time around.
So, Ms. Alder, so begin to wind down with you. What are you doing? Are you concerned about the two things when it comes to local government election? One is the level of voter apathy, perhaps people. And then the issue of perception of predetermined outcome. How are you managing that?
Well, voter apathy, like I told you, I have not a Nostradamus to be able to know what will happen. But we have been committed to this process. Our preparation has been steady. Our commitment is firm. Our destination is very clear: to midwife an electoral process that River State people will own, an electoral process that they can trust, an electoral process that they can defend anywhere, any day. Your second question is to the outcome. You know, local government elections generally in this country, the perception is that the government in power, the political party in power, is the one that holds sway. But I want to remark that you know, opposition parties go into elections, particularly at the grassroots local government elections, with a defeatist, approach. You know, for them, one, they claim they don't have resources, and you hardly even see them campaigning. And so that is why maybe the success index for political parties in power, it's at times questionable. But if you look at the dynamics, you will understand that when somebody wants to go into a context and is already feeling defeated, the outcome will be as predicted.
You know, you won't blame the people. The trend has shown that significantly. For us who watch this space, it's very easy to predict a local government election. If I do a bet, I can win literally all of them because of how we found ourselves. But what is more important for you, who is a neutral umpire, is to provide a level playing field for a credible election. So what are you doing to make sure that there's confidence in RISIEC? Ability to conduct this election fairly, transparently, and credibly?
Yeah, I think, you know, to show an integrity in the process, your actions or inactions will have that perception. And so, but if we are inclusive, if you are you know, carrying along the major stakeholders along all the processes in the value chain, there is a tendency that they will own it, they will key into it, and there is a probability too that since they are part of the process, they will also accept the outcome. From our side, we've been very transparent. We've not been opaque. It is when you do things, you know, without letting people know that you create suspicion, you're bound to be, you know, fake news, misinformation, and at times it could even lead to protest if you are not open. I can assure you that we've been considerably transparent, and there's nothing to hide about our process.
So, Mr. Ode, just before we let you go, I'd like you to give us some quick answers. It's 8:49 now. First of all, how many parties are conducting this election, are participating in this election?
We have 17 political parties participating in this election. They also, to indicate that they collected their expression of interest forms and went through the necessary process of screening. Okay. So we have 17 political parties taking part in this local government elections.
Okay. It's exactly 10 minutes to 9. From information available to you, how many local governments are yet to get whatever materials they need to get so that the elections can begin?
No. All have received election materials. The election materials, we started on Thursday with non-sensitive materials. As at yesterday, all the sensitive materials had been received by the electoral officers in their LGAs. Remember, we have 6 commissioners. And so each commissioner is assigned about 3 LGAs or so. So yesterday, they went with sensitive materials accompanied by security agents and delivered physically to the electoral officers at the LGA levels.
So can we confirm right now that all elections are supposed to start when they are supposed to start? Tell us, what time are elections supposed to start in Rivers State today?
Election is supposed to start at 8:30, and by now I can assure you that a considerable number of local government, more than 80%, have commenced the beginning of poll.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. Michael Ode, the chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, for coming in. Despite your busy day, we'll check in on you as we progress with the exercise.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank you.
It's always my pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get back here and talk to our guest, Dr. Wahab Shitu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. I'm sure you've heard the chairman speak about these things, and I didn't want to drag him into the legalese because today is not the day for all of that. Let him do what he has to do as far as his election is concerned. I know you had talked about the issues around prejudices and all of that. I understand that, but there's a judgment that we can rely on that looks like, for me, a locus classicus as far as local government election is concerned. In this same Rivers State, when the election was conducted last year, October, and nullified by the Supreme Court, Justice Yamama was the one that read the lead judgment, and the premise for nullifying that election resides in Section 150 of the Electoral Act, Section 151 and 3, which simply talked about the fact that, however elections are conducted in the FCT, it will have its equal force with the way it's conducted in the states. And subsection 3 says that if it is not done the way it is done in the FCT, that election should be nullified. And that premise he quoted in his judgment that we all have, and decided this election. So if you look at notice of election and several other issues, we may be having a problem. That's why I'm saying based on a judgment, not what is being applied in the court, which is perhaps the reason why they went to court.
You have referenced a Supreme Court judgment.
In the same River State.
In the same River State. Until that judgment is set aside by the same Supreme Court, it remains the law on that point. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. And so when the Supreme Court has made a pronouncement on an issue, first of all, it is unethical to relitigate the same issue in an inferior court to the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court has made that pronouncement on that subject matter. If you are aggrieved with what the Supreme Court has said on that matter and you want to raise the issue again, or you can then go back to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court to set aside its own judgment, which is a jurisdiction that is rarely exercised. So, but for you to, if there's a clear-cut pronouncement by the Supreme Court on any subject, you now go before a lower court to relitigate that same issue. That is a fundamental breach of ethical standards, or ethics, by counsel who's involved in that kind of exercise. It may be excusable if you go to the Supreme Court to say, oh, take a second look at this. There are new developments. We have had situations, rare situations, where the Supreme Court will set aside its own judgment. But it's something that is, once the Supreme Court has made a pronouncement.
Senior advocate, the reason I was going to ask this next question, the reason why I raised that particular issue, because we see a lot of politicians do things, and you're wondering exactly what is going on.
Yes.
So, for instance, the issue of local government autonomy has always been there. For the section of the Constitution, Section 7, clearly says that the state should guarantee democratically elected governance at the local government level. It's been there in our Constitution as long as this Constitution has been. But governors and state government have found a way to to defy the Constitution, that in their own law, within the local government administration, they provide for caretaker and transition committee, an affront on the Constitution, until this Attorney General came and said, that has to stop. And the Supreme Court agreed with him, which is why all of a sudden, everybody now knows that local government election has to hold.
Yes.
So what do you make of these political breaches into our laws?
Well, it's something that should...
Not necessarily about this, for example.
It's something that should be a cause for concern. In the democracies, that will be an anomaly. I've said it before, that our democracy is supposed to be a democracy by the rule of law. What that means is that you cannot have a democracy, properly so-called, if you don't have respect for the rule of law, if you don't have respect for constitutionalism. What does that mean? It means that you must allow that democracy to be governed by the spirit and letters of the Constitution. So if the Constitution has made specific provisions on any area, you must respect it. Respect for the rule of law, respect for the constitutionalism, respect for the rule of law, respect for due process ought to define our democracy. You understand me? So it's not the whims of political elites that determines the direction of our democracy. It's the spirit and letters of the law that ought to determine. So when you see the scenarios you have just referred to playing out, we are not subscribing to the spirit and letters of democratic standards. And that should be a cause of worry. So I think the takeaway from this conversation ought to be that, are we ready for democracy? And if we are ready for democracy, then we should allow our democracy to be governed by the respect for the rule of law.
You know, one of the...
respect for constitutionalism. So you cannot begin to do things outside the spirit and letters of the Constitution and say you are a Democrat. So you cannot even have a democracy without you yourself being ready to be a Democrat. And how do you subscribe to say that, oh, I want to be a Democrat? Then you must respect the Constitution.
Well,
you must respect the rule of law. And that is basic.
Okay.
Anything we are doing outside that is
descent
to the jungle.
Jeffrey said something earlier that he can predict the outcome of this election. I guess we're going to have to say he's looking to the VAR
for today.
and he has said, okay, this is what is likely. Mr. Kunle Lawal joins us right now via Zoom. He is Executive Director of Electoral College, Nigeria. Good morning, Mr. Lawal, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
All right. Naturally, the question I want to ask you is what you think the level of our preparation is. You've listened to the chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, Mr. Michael Ode. You heard a number of things that he said, I hope, and how persuaded are you about the level of our preparedness for these local government elections?
First and foremost, we'll start with Rivers State as its entirety. Now, Rivers is under an emergency rule prepared by the president. And Section 305 clearly states that democratic structures are suspended indefinitely in cases where it is reported Plateau, Adamawa, and Plateau and Adamawa, I remember clearly, local government elections were not held. Because it was preempting or preceding or during an emergency rule, so it's a democratic structure that puts in place. Now, River State in focus. River State usually has one of the most volatile LG elections in Nigeria. Now with the sole administrator and the RISEC, that's State Electoral Commissioner, being appointed by the sole administrator, who apparently isn't from River State. There's a lot of conversation around the practicality of this local government election. That's within political parties and within River State indigenous. And these conversations have led to quite a mistrust. So we naturally have less than 6.5% of the voting population participation in local government elections in River State. Now the projection is, with all these quagmires surrounding the present situation, we're looking at probably lower turnouts. I don't know, my prediction is between 4.5 and 5% participation.
That's not a good, that's not the kind of statistics you want to expect. I'm pretty sure that it's not, you wish it was more, but historically, what you just said now about the stats of the number of people that are likely to come out is the fact. And you probably heard Dr. Shitu also speak to that, and as to what could be responsible for that. From your own prism, what do you think could be the reason? Obvious or not so obvious?
Well, I would like to start with first the suspension of democratic structures in our rivers. That would be a big issue with what's going on and would affect participation. With that suspension, other political parties participating in this election would assume they too could be suspended at will on the premise of the president or the sole administrator. And therein lies your quagmire. And then you have a lot of people not wanting to come out because they do not believe in the system again. We already have a problem with people believing in the system in Nigeria generally. And then now you have this issue with Rivers State, which is now a whole new ballgame. And, you know, it begs the question, like he said, like the speaker in the studio said, we must have the rule of law if we want to practice a democracy. We can't use the rule of law when we feel like or when we think it is suitable. Now, this of course will affect participation generally. The poor political party participation in local governments is not only with Rivers State. I think because of state control of local government elections, is a ruling party leads belief. So nobody else wants to participate. We saw that quagmire with the Lagos elections, in which all the parties that were even participating were not mentioned in a lot of polling units in Lagos. And I think we're going to see the same in Rivers State. I think I've never for one supported states because of the power of executive governors, or in this case, sole administrators. I've never supported states conducting LG elections, right? I think the power vested in them is too much. And since they are being appointed by sole administrator or governor, their influence on the elections is too massive to call it democratic.
Well, just let me get this straight so that Dr. Shitu can respond to it. Are you saying that because we're under an emergency rule in Rivers State, and since, according to you, all democratic infrastructure are on hold, are you saying that the local government elections shouldn't be holding because of that?
Well, if you look at the laws of Nigeria, yeah, the Electoral Act is silent on it, but the Section 305 of the Constitution, the same section which was used to suspend the elected governor, clearly states that democratic structures are suspended. There's a lacuna because it doesn't mention local government elections, but it clearly states democratic structures are suspended. And you cannot, I don't see the democracy in something that was appointed creating an elected. The elected is supposed to precede the appointed. So an appointed can't create an elected, in the simplest terms to put it.
That's an interesting perspective. Dr. Shitu, how do you respond to that?
Well, I've heard repeatedly the expression democratic structures are lately suspended if there's a declaration of emergency.
According to the Constitution.
I've scanned through the Constitution.
Okay.
I've not seen such provision that all democratic structures will be suspended if there's a declaration of a state of emergency. I've just glanced through Section 305. We have under Section 305
about 4 provisions.
About six.
Yes, about that.
Yes. There's nowhere it is stated that all democratic structures will be suspended. You will recognize the fact that the local government democratic structure is specifically provided for under Section 7 of the Constitution, and that the system of democratically elected local government council is hereby guaranteed. There's nowhere under Section 305 where that provision is dislodged. Or is said that because when there's a state of emergency, then the local government structure will also terminate. There's no such. I don't want to go into other arguments on this issue, because if you see the suit that is pending before the Rivers State High Court, the live issue there, which is yet to be resolved, to which even proceedings have been adjourned, is to determine whether the Constitution, the nomination, the Constitution, and then the presentation of the Rivers State Electoral Commission Board is constitutional against the background of Section 176, subsection 1 and 2, and Section 197, subsection 1 and 3 of the Constitution. We shouldn't comment on that because it's an issue that is pending before a court of competent jurisdiction. Proceedings have been adjourned to determine that issue. When a pronouncement is made by the court, one way or the other, we can then come and interrogate that pronouncement. But now that that issue is a live issue before the High Court, we should not sit in judgment before that pronouncement is made.
I asked a similar question earlier, and that's when you were telling us, trying to warn us, yourself, as you said the other time. But I'm coming somewhere. I'm coming somewhere. Because, you know, if you also heard what Mr. Lawal said,
Yes.
there are a number of things that may not allow people to come out, that may continue to give the people this impression. For instance, and the question that I asked earlier was that this dynamic is unique in that an emergency rule is in force in Rivers State and a local government election is being conducted. That is a fact. It's not something about it. So I'm just asking, how significantly do you think that will affect the outcome or the disposition of the people? That's all.
Well, that also may affect. To deny that such, what is going on in Rivers State is something that is not ordinary. In a democracy, you expect all officials that will participate in the process to be elected, except those who are appointed after the designated officials are elected. You understand me? For instance, the president appoints ministers and all that who are not elected. The governor appoints commissioners who are not elected. But that authority derives from elected representatives. So, what is going on? When you have a state of emergency, the state is an abnormal situation. It's an emergency situation. It doesn't mean that in an emergency situation, law is silent. Because even the administrator who is appointed to come and preside over that emergency situation in the case of Rivers State has a duty to deliver on law and order. And if you look at it from that perspective, delivering on law and order also includes ensuring that where appropriate, elections are to be conducted. Yeah, it should be conducted. You understand me? Because as my own interpretation, I want to just keep silent because I don't want to comment on the suit that is in court now presently. Because it's surgeries. So we don't want to comment on that. But to say that because a state of emergency is declared, then the law is silent. It's not. It doesn't make sense. Even in a state of war, under international law is never silent. There are rules regulating even the conduct of war. You understand me? When there's conduct of war and, for instance, you are not supposed to bomb civilian targets during a state of war. You are also supposed to recognize the rights of women and those who are vulnerable. You are not supposed to also deploy, military arsenal to destroy certain specific targets during the war. There are laws of war. So even even when law is raging, the law is not silent. Law is always active. Law is always active, whether we're in a state of peace or in a state of war.
Just to build on that,
yes.
Are we allowing political apprehension to get us into a conundrum that we're now trying to run? We don't even know where we're racing to, because literally everything from the beginning, the challenge of the president's powers, ultra vires, as alleged, now a case before the Supreme Court, which I know you will not like to speak to, because the last time we went to the Supreme Court, their justices looked for a way to, it wasn't adjudicated on, because the man who brought in the case, Joshua Daria, he doesn't have the local standard because he was already suspended. And then appointment of a sole administrator, and then him appointing several other persons. But there's a future landmine here, that even if you look at the local government law in Rivers State, and I'm sure in every other state, the chairmen are being sworn in by the governor at the council chambers. So what are we doing? What are we really getting at? Because at the end of the day, is this sole administrator that will swear in the elected chairman that will be elected today. And that in itself is a constitutional issue.
Thank you. Who is a governor? who is a sole administrator. A governor presides over the affairs of the state. And that role, that function is being exercised by the sole administrator. Remember that the River State as it is now is a peculiarity. You understand me? The Constitution makes provisions for its declaration of a state of emergency under Section 305. I didn't make that provision. You didn't make it. The draftsman made it there. So it's not that the sole administrator suddenly emerged or a state of emergency is suddenly declared outside the Constitution.
No, the Constitution provides for state of emergency.
Yes.
The Constitution did not provide for a sole administrator.
When you say a state of emergency, you are saying that there will be the exercise of extraordinary powers. The word extraordinary powers is so very extensive. The president has the power to declare a state of emergency anywhere.
Correct.
And then if he declares a state, then that means extraordinary powers can be exercised. Yeah? And that extraordinary powers, he can determine whether the governor continues to be there.
That's the subject of argument.
Yes, I mean, he can also decide how those extraordinary, measures can take place to deliver on peace and security. Let me tell you, in a state of emergency, the primary concern is to deliver on law and order. You understand me? And there's a precedent for what the president has done. It's not the first time. There was a time a state of emergency was declared in Plateau State. And a sole administrator was appointed by former President Obasanjo. This is not the first time this is taking place. It's the prerogative of the president to determine
Which senior advocate, I know we don't want to go into the issue that is before the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Because we're even worried that the Supreme Court is not adjudicating on such sensitive issues.
not adjudicate on if you are not properly before the court.
No, the reason is because the last time that case went to court, that actually went to court, and there was an issue of local standards. The man who instituted the suit, which is why the PDP governors now said, okay, let's go. Let's determine this thing once and for all. The issue of discretional latitude of a president in the situation of a state of emergency to remove elected officials. You can do every other thing. The elected official is the bone of contention. The argument as to the fact that, the dramatic personnel involved are supposed to be the ones to call for is back and forth. And what I was just asking you was, there is no provision for a sole administrator in the Constitution of the Federal Republic as it is.
Yes. There's no such a specific express provision. But you know that the provision can be expressly given. It can also be impliedly given. It can also be.
It goes to what you said.
It can also be circumstantially given.
It goes to what you said the other time that. This whole thing of interpretation will come there.
Yes.
But let me ask Mr. Lawal. So this is where we are now, and it's like you've already looked into the crystal ball of Jeffrey, who says that as far as he can determine certain things as far as this election is concerned. I'm not going to ask him because he's not my guest. I said local government elections. But from where you stand, where you sit, and from what you know about our country, Mr. Lawal, what are we to expect today? We asked the research chairman about the level of preparedness and several places that people have, materials have gone out and all of those things, how far and wide materials ought to have gone, and he gave us the assurance that by now elections ought to have started. What are your expectations today in terms of security, in terms of the logistics, in terms of the turnout? You gave us an idea earlier, but what are your expectations and what are the things that you think we should guard against?
Thank you very much. I'd like to first correct something the man in the studio said. I said the Electoral Act is silent on LG elections. I don't like being misconstrued totally. He's built a total case on something that does not even exist. And he's saying with one voice that the extraordinary powers, and then saying with one voice it can conduct LG elections. For me, that's double standards. The National Assembly cannot control the budget of a state. If it does, at that point, democratic structures in that state are suspended. And we know that. But, let's dilly-dally to the gallery as we wish. Back to the question you just asked. Logistically, I do not think, and I've seen this over LG elections, I've seen quite a lot of logistical issues when it comes to state electoral commissions. I don't know whether it's the amount of money put out for the elections or it is the general administration of state electoral councils, which normally, ends up with quite, materials not reaching the right place. In the case of Lagos, Kaduna, materials, polling units reduced by the state so that, so they could just attend to selective ones and nobody knows till the day of the elections. We've seen, we would see such issues with parties. Sometimes maybe 6 parties are available for these councillorship elections. Only 3 parties will be printed. And they'll blame an administrative or clerical error, and nothing is ever done or looked into. I expect this kind of quagmires that would happen in the local government elections. I also, like I said, I'm hoping it will be different this time, but Rivers usually has one of the most volatile local government elections in Nigeria. I'm hoping that this will be very different in this conversation. What do I see presently as regards what's going on? For me, I don't expect, and if I'm to score the election from what I think would probably happen, I'll score the election about 30%. Number one, it's not even constituted by democratically elected. That's the first anomaly in the whole situation. And you can dilly-dally around it and speak about the Supreme Court as much as you want, but this is a democracy. For those born under military rule, I know it's kind of hard for them to understand this conversation, but who have spent most of their life in military rule, it's kind of it's hard for them to understand this conversation. But for me, the LG elections in Rivers is a total anomaly with the presence of the fact that an unelected government is in charge of that particular election.
Okay. Just a quick one, and I'm sure that maybe Dr. Shitu may want to respond to a thing or two you said. But I just want to be clear. When you say that the Electoral Act is silent on local government elections, is that what you said, or I don't want you
yes. When I mean silent on local government elections under an emergency rule, it is silent. That's what I said.
Okay. I don't even think there is any law in the country that provides for any election under any emergency rule, even at the federal level.
Dr. Shitu is here, he's a lawyer.
Well, that's why I'm asking him.
And maybe you'll respond to some of the things that were said.
Well, I don't want to join issues with the eminent guest who has just commented, because imbued in the democratic process is the right of dissent. You can agree and disagree. What is not permissible is to be disagreeable. So he has expressed I don't know. He has expressed his opinion. He's entitled to it. But I'm speaking from the perspective of being a lawyer. I've looked at the entire provisions of Section 305. There's nowhere they say all democratic structures suspended. Do you know that the court itself is a democratic structure? Our judges don't sit even under a democracy, an emergency rule. There's a state high court that has just pronounced, made the order that the election should hold. That's a democratic structure. The court is a democratic structure. The police is a democratic structure. There are even security agencies. They are democratic structures. There's no way you can suspend. What is taking place? Okay, what is suspended is, is the State House of Assembly. And even that does not even suspend the existence of law. The National Assembly can legislate for Rivers State under an emergency rule. You understand me? Which means law is still alive. So it's not. I think what we should be, the advocacy should be that some of the gaps that we have noticed here can be redressed through a process of constitutional amendment. People are saying that we need a brand new constitution. to be able to look at some of these gray areas and make specific provisions for them in order to forestall future ambiguities.
Okay.
You understand me? But in the absence of that, we should make do with what we have. That is when there are gray areas, where there are gaps in constitutional provision, approach the court for interpretation. The wise men who sit as judges will be able to look at. You recall that there was a time, even former President Jonathan, there was a statement as to whether he's entitled to be sworn in as the president of the country following the death of former President Musa Yar'Adua. That matter was taken before the Supreme Court, and that gave rise to the doctrine of necessity. And by virtue of that doctrine, he was ordered to be sworn in. That is why we must begin to effectively utilize the genius services of the judges. When people are appointed as judges, they are supposed to play a unique role in stabilizing the process and then clearing areas of ambiguity so that the law will, normal course of events will move on. You cannot afford to have a vacuum. What all these problems we are saying can be resolved by the court through firm pronouncement. Law, there's a school of thought which says law is nothing but the pronouncement of judges. That's the realist. They believe that you go to court as lawyer on this side or as lawyer on the other side, you make your arguments. It is what the judge pronounces upon that is the law. That's the realist postulate. Now the judge has said election must go on. That's the pronouncement of the High Court of that's the law. You understand me? So that's why we are thinking, if the judge says don't go ahead with that election, it means the election will not take place. But the judge said go ahead. So now we're having the election. And there are other issues that you have raised. Is that he adjoined those issues for determination. Until those issues are adjudicated by the court, the assumption is that...
Let's say, at the end of the day, yes, maybe we would have avoided this if this election did not hold under an emergency situation. But now we're here, and the concern, which is what I want to bring to Mr. Kunle, is the issue of what precedent we're setting as far as electoral jurisprudence is concerned. You mentioned the Section 11 provides for legislation to be made at the National Assembly when the State Assembly can't.
Yes, yes.
But subsection 4 protects the governor and the deputy. You don't go near there. It's as clear in the law as that is. So let me come to you, Kunle, as far as this particular one is concerned. What precedent do you think we are setting here with what is going on in Rivers State? Because perhaps the honorable judge of the High Court in Rivers State was relying on Section 84, subsection 15, that clearly says that when an election is already in motion, you can't stop it by even any court's pronouncement.
So for me, if a country has to go to a court as regards matters of an election in their problems with its laws, that's what I've always believed. The judicial interference in our elections, for me, is a little high for a democracy. It's a little too high, and it shows that our laws are not clear, they are ambiguous, and they are vague. There are conversations in which you would have and you say, the Nigerian democracy is supposed to stand on its own. We're supposed to have elections. We're not supposed to have elections decided by courts. That is wrong. That shows a fundamental break or bridge in the basic foundation of a constitutional democracy. But lawyers want to argue another way. You know, lawyers think they own the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It belongs actually to every Nigerian. But the conversation is, in my opinion, I do not consider the LG elections, and I'm saying this clearly in national TV, the LG elections in Rivers State right now under a sole administrator sets dangerous precedents for our young democracy. It sets the standard or the tone that an appointed person who serves on the behest of an elected president, who is not supposed to control matters in a state which still have conflicting stories on the emergency rule position, but anyway, conduct an LG elections. For me, it's totally not good for our democracy. It will bring up another argument. You see, preceding other emergency rules like we've had in Plateau and Adama, we clearly didn't say an LG elections happen, which is why we can fall back to that and say LG elections didn't happen under this. But now it's happening under this. It means 10 years from now, we'll be talking, it happened in Port Harcourt. So we can as well launch another emergency rule, conduct an LG elections, conduct a State House of Assembly elections, and even probably conduct a gubernatorial elections. For me, this precedence, in my opinion,
well, Mr. Lawal,
is not good for a democracy.
Well, Mr. Lawal, there's something Dr. Shitu said earlier, that, all these issues are most certainly valid. The issues that we're raising right now, the concerns that have been expressed, and all of this, they are totally valid. But he has made a recommendation that maybe we should detail some of these conflicts, as if we can use that term, in the constitution amendment process, so that maybe we ensure that this doesn't happen again. Because essentially, I think the point being made here is we cannot say because of a particular situation that we have on our hands that democratic processes should be suspended. We have a sole administrator in the state. Should we also have sole administrators at the local government levels? Perhaps that's the challenge. If you were to recommend adjustments to the Constitution or to our laws to forbid this kind of situation we have, because this one is already playing, we can't stop it, what would be your recommendations if any adjustments were to be made?
First, the first adjustment I would like to look into would be the powers of the president to suspend an elected state governor. That should not exist. They're both elected, they're both mandated by each virtue of elections by particular people in a particular territorial boundary. I don't believe the president should be. I agree the State House of Assembly can impeach or suspend the governor, as the case may be. Though I do not believe in federal interference in state matters. I feel that has underbuilt our states. Secondly, I do not think state electoral commissions, as constituted, can conduct elections into local government offices. They are by a little trumped by the fact that they are appointed by state governors. Secondly, we don't see any democracy. 97%, between 96 to 97% are being won by the incumbent party in all situations. I don't think that is democratic. I'm for the return of state elections back to INEC till we can manage our state electoral commissions properly. And then thirdly, I also believe, like I said, we need to sit on this autonomy as granted by the Constitution for local governments, which will probably make them more functional and will participate more when we realize no local government in Nigeria receives less than 250 million in fact allocation per month. But it's not a discussion that we want to have mostly. So I think we should provide the autonomous nature for local governments and more people participate in its elections.
All right, in a moment we'll be switching gears to find out what exactly is going on the streets of Port Harcourt, as well as the 23 local government areas, as much as our cameras can catch. The elections are ongoing in Rivers State. In case you just joined us, this is Channel CV, and we are on ground in Rivers State to ensure that we'll bring you up to speed with the elections, local government elections today, August the 30th, in the 23 local government areas. We understand about 15 or so political parties, 17 political parties are participating in this exercise. So we'll be following up. The INEC chairman has spoken to us, sorry, the RESEC chairman, I should say. That's the resident, the chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission has had a conversation with us in terms of his preparations and what he's doing. And we have Kunle Lawal, of the Electoral College, and also Dr. Shitu, who is here, who is doing the heavy lifting of the law for us. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria, Leonard Silk. Dr. Shitu, so these pictures you're seeing now is enforcement to make sure that if you don't have any business as an electoral official, as a journalist, as a security personnel, or people that provide essential services in that sense, you don't have any business being on the road today in Rivers State. We understand there's been a curfew has been declared. So that means you're restricted to the area where you vote, your polling units. Anything outside that, you'll be breaching and breaking the law as far as elections are concerned. So this is the free street of Port Harcourt. I'm not sure where this is, but it's one of the streets where, just to show you, it's empty. People just carelessly watching.
Now, you know, one of the things that the chairman of the Electoral Commission said earlier is that as at 8:30, elections have begun in different parts of River State. Well, this is one of those places. These are live pictures coming from one polling unit in River State.
Yeah, I'm just praying. Dr. Shitu will come to you, but we're just looking at polling ballot boxes. I can see chairmanship. That's chairman and councillor of elections. So the one in red, if you're casting your vote, in case you're watching TV and you haven't set out to vote, so be clear, from what we're seeing, the one in red is for chairmanship, the one in green is for councillor. But this looks quite empty. I can see the police. Okay, not the police now. Yeah, so there's a policeman seated, because even in an election, there's clarity as to the distance between the policeman and the polling units.
Absolutely.
So these are the things we look out for when you go to the field. So the electoral officers are there, the polling unit officers. And this is Obiakpor local government area in River State. The officials?
Ward 13.
Ward 13.
So if you are nearby,
you can see people here.
Yeah, I mean,
what's going on?
If you are nearby, call your neighbor, tell someone to tell someone to come out and vote. You know, one of the assurances that has been given is that there is security provided for everyone.
There has to be
who comes.
Emergency. There has to be.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that didn't stop protests when people were protesting.
And it was peaceful anyway, so
which is of course peaceful, yes. So it'll be important for us to get that perspective from people. And here we have Deborah again.
Yeah, we'll get to Deborah in just a moment as soon as she's ready for us. But I think our camera is panning around the area in this Ward 13 in Obiakpor local government area of River State. So we just shown you the ballot box, but this is just a street away, just across the ballot box where the officials are standing, where the officials are seated rather, and the police officer is already there to make sure that people who are interested in coming out to vote come out. But it's very disturbing and worrying. Obiakpor has a sick. In fact, if you go to governorship or presidential election, this Obiakpor is what you have to look out for in terms of election results.
So if you are going to win.
Yeah, this is it's critical for you. Obiakpor is a determining, in fact, I think it's one of the, among the richest local governments in Nigeria. Obiakpor should be among the top 5, if not second or third. That's how rich they are in numbers and everything. So, Deborah, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, fantastic. We've just been trying to interpret.
I can.
Fantastic, Deborah. Great. We've just been trying to interpret what we're seeing. We're seeing, I think somebody has just cast in a ballot. Walk us through what we're seeing, by the way. You are the one on ground.
Okay, this is Unit 15, Ward 13 in Obiakpor local government area. It might just be important to note that this is the Rumola area, which is like the center of the city. So you would expect voters to be around here a whole lot. They have a voting strength of 1,324 in this unit. And they've been voting according to the electoral officers here for the past 50 minutes. And well, this is what has so far been casted. If you look at the ballot box, you see that counting here, I don't see more than 6 of it, of the slips, the voting slips. Even at the other ballot box, I don't see more than that as well. So if they've been voting for 50 minutes, I don't know what I would say that the turnout isn't encouraging, you know, because at 50 minutes in a place that is in the metropolis, you would expect that the voting would be more, the turnout would be a little bit more than what we're seeing. However, people are voting. Someone has just arrived to cast his vote. They're coming in trinkles. That's what is very visible here in this particular unit. There's another unit right opposite the road. If you come with me, I've been standing here for a while now, and I haven't really seen people going there to vote. And even from here, I can see that the ballot box is looking empty even from my distance, right opposite. We'll just take a quick stroll there.
Yeah. Yeah, so, Deborah, I'm sure you can hear me.
Right,
when
so
you walk...
This is actually Rumola Road, so this is another unit. I understand this is Unit 20.
Okay.
21, Unit 21. So, this particular unit, I see nothing inside the ballot boxes. This is Unit 21 in Ward 13 as well. So, and apparently, how long has this gone on? How long have voting commenced here? 30 minutes, okay. So here, voting has commenced within the last 30 minutes, and their boxes are all empty. Doesn't seem like people are turning out in this particular unit yet. Perhaps we'll check again.
All right, but, Deborah, can you hear?
Units actually, Unit 20 and Unit 21. So which one is 20, which one is 21? 20 and that's 21. And in the both boxes, there are no voting slips. So that's what we have. This is Unit 20 and 21 in Obiakpo, Ward 19, Ward 13. And then we also saw scanty voting at Unit 15, opposite the road there. So that's what we have.
All right, Deborah, if you can hear me, if you can. Yes.
A different scenario.
All right. Okay, I was hoping you can hear me. Just can you hear me now, Deborah? All right, can you hear me, Deborah?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. There's compliance. You can see the street.
Oh,
take a shot of the street. Everybody, I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. I think so that if you pick my questions correctly, I would like you to go to where the polling officers are and let them walk us through how the process is supposed to be. I don't know whether I can see beavers machine. Are they using beavers? When people come, how does it work for them? So just help us speak to them and let's have an education, if you will, on air.
Okay. Hello, good day, sir. What's your name, please?
My name is Ebere.
Okay, Bere who?
Elena.
Okay, you are the
Polling clerk of Unit 21, Ward 13.
Okay. So tell us your impression since you got here. How many minutes have you been here? And what is your perception of what's going on here today?
Yeah, thank you. The materials just arrived 30 minutes ago. We're already set for elections. Some persons that came in said they forget their PVC, so they went back to get their PVC so that we'll start voting. So far so good. The election has been peaceful and we are good to go.
Okay, I also have some human rights people here who seem to be monitoring what's going on in the units. This is Mrs. Mary Chijoke. Good day, ma.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing and how's the election going by your perception?
I'm doing fine. By my perception, we still have voting empathy. The election is peaceful, but we are begging people to come out and vote. So thank you very much.
So, well, that's the impression that this is leaving us with at this time. We will just keep monitoring and see whether there are other scenarios that are better than what we've seen here.
Okay.
Thank you, Deborah. I want to make an appeal, to everyone who is watching us. So, Deborah, don't worry, we'll get back to you shortly. As you said, just monitor a number of other places, and then we'll be waiting to hear from you. I just want to make an appeal to the people who are watching us at home, particularly in Rivers State. Anywhere you are in Nigeria, you know anyone in Rivers State, please just appeal to them to go out and vote. As you can see, everywhere is peaceful. The roads are free, and it's interesting that the polling booths are right there in front of your house.
Especially, let's contextualize those in the city center that we can see.
Exactly.
We don't know what's going on in the riverine areas.
Maybe we'll get information from there as well. But at least from what you can see, everywhere is peaceful. The security officials are there. The election materials are there. And if we're talking about waste, it will be on us, right, to deploy all of these resources, print ballot papers, deploy personnel, and we still don't go out to vote. At the end of the day, it is not a them thing anymore, it's an us thing. It's just the appeal we are making here at Channels Television. Let's justify the investments that we are making in all of these things. It begs the question, Mr. Lawal, my apologies, to that maybe we haven't really engaged the people enough, Mr. Lawal. Maybe we haven't done well. One of the things, in my experience on this job, and even from the Third Republic monitoring elections and all until now, one of the consistent things that we have seen is that the job of creating awareness and educating the voter is not just that of the electoral umpire. It's also that of the political parties. 17 political parties, according to the RISEC chairman, participating in this election. And here we are, and the streets are still empty. What are your thoughts on that? Is it on the people? Is it on the political parties? Is it on governments? What exactly do you think is happening here?
I thank you very much. This is a topic I'm very invested in. For me, I think it's a problem with all of us. It's not restricted to just the political parties, the people, and this is how I look at it. Maybe because of our time under military rule, we have become so drunk with presidential elections. And most of the advocacy, now I'm going to hit on people in the CSO space, on NGOs, most of the advocacy is on the level of state governments and federal governments. Open governance systems, everything remains on that level. Most of the advocacy remains there. When you come down to the media is ready to jump at a presidential debate, a gubernatorial debate. When you say, come, let's do a local government debate, I'm not pointing at channels directly, so I'm packing everybody.
No, but I can exempt channels on your behalf because we have dedicated
I'm not
4
pointing,
hours.
like I said,
4 hours this morning to the local government elections. But go ahead.
Okay, so the media, when it comes to local government elections, everybody bills or exits the room. This has brought quite a low cadre. Now, it's shocking to understand that a local government seems to be more important under a military rule than it is under a democratic rule. And I believe a lot of us, everybody's guilty of it to different levels. The amount of money even released by the federal government to local governments is even shrouded in kind of secrecy. It's not public information. It's public information, but nobody wants to look for that information. Those who don't know what their local governments receive, we don't even understand the jobs of local governments. It's so bad that even those who are in local government positions do not understand the jurisdictions of their offices. And I know because I interfaced with them in Lagos, in different parts of Nigeria, they do not even understand the jurisdiction. We're in a country where our civic education and our understanding of politics does not even let us know that councillors are like the National Assembly of the local government. We don't even understand that. And therein lies the massive problem with local governments. The expose on it and the conversation, even the so-called not too young to run bill, everyone who came out under that conversation wants to run for House Rep, wants to run for this, wants to run for that. Nobody looks at that. I don't know how we've gotten into this quagmire, but I think it's something we really, really need to get out of. You can look at Obiakpo. I think it has 3 oil wells, is it, or 2? It's one of the richest local governments, like you stated, in Rivers State, which means the local government chairman is going to be controlling something within the tune of 500 million and 1 billion per month in federal allocations. You can see in a ward 6 votes. The local government chairman is going to probably win, give or take, with less than 3,000 votes. You can mark that. You need less than 3,000 votes, 17 political parties participating, and over 1,000 people per polling unit. I think it goes to show, I didn't want to be right when I said earlier today that we're going to witness a 4%, 4-5% turnout. To begin to see it is painful. Yes, I understand the indices that made me make that statement, but to see it in practicality is hurtful.
Unfortunately, you are right. This part, unfortunately, you are right. And you have raised a very, very important conversation here. My apologies, Jeffrey. I know you have a question for him. But let me quickly take, Dr. Shitu's perspective on some of the issues that he has raised. And a number of other people have said the same thing. In all of our advocacy, we advocate more for the federal and state elections. Hardly do we ever give attention to local government elections. Raising the question again of the quality of people we are likely to attract. Because if on the one hand you don't know what your job is, on the other hand you don't even know whether you're qualified for the job, and you get there and you have to control the amount of money that he's talking about. Most certainly, the sheer bottom line is going to intimidate the fellow who's been appointed to do the job.
Well, I agree with almost all his submissions in this respect. I think what this also requires is that more quality people should begin to show interest in the local government administration. For instance, if you want to be the current FCT minister, Wike, started from the local government level. He started his political career as a local government chairman. And then now he rose from there to become a governor and then to become a minister. Now he's also FCT minister. I think more people, you and I, should begin to show interest in the local government administration. Because that is where you are likely to impact the people more. All of us here belong to one local government administration or the other. Where you live, there's a local government council there. And then if you are having challenges about services, education, healthcare, and some other, deliverables that will impact your life, is that government that is closer to you. If we have a power supply or some other challenges that we have in our day-to-day living, issues that will take directly to the local government administration. So people should, focus on that area. Beyond that, I think the chairman of Rivers State Electoral Commission was on air the other time and assured us that they have made a lot of preparation. I can see that what he told us I can see evidence of that. Now, I think you cannot, as far as this election is concerned, begin to put blame at the doorstep of the Rivers State Electoral Commission. You see, the officials are there, the voting materials are there. We can see clearly. Now, I think the real problem now is focus on the people, and that the people must come out. So, what you are doing here, all others. Television stations, you must also do that. You say you have dedicated 4 hours to cover this election. That is salutary. And I think the media, both electronic and the print, must join this crusade of enlightenment, of awareness, of sensitization, so that everybody is sufficiently. No, we cannot begin to say because we are not seeing the kind of governance that we expect. They will lay back. They will sit down, look. It doesn't help the process. People must come out. And again, we cannot begin it's premature now to say that people won't come out. They will come out. Some people like to see the weekend as a period where they will rest. And then rest very well before they come out.
Yeah, we'll go for a quick break. In election, there are like 3 phases. There's a phase of this phase we're talking about, going out to vote, and then the counting phase. Then there's a phase we call the quiet before the storm. That is when, between the movement of those materials and declaration of results, that's when the real drama really happens, especially at bigger elections. Special sunrise dedicated to covering the exercise in Rivers State. So we've been touching base across board, especially in the city center. So we've actually spoken with the chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, Our correspondent Deborah Balama is also on ground. She's checked in on, I think, Unit 15 and Unit 13. Unit 15, Unit 20, Unit 21, or what 13 in Obiakpo local government areas. So we're going to touch base on other local government areas in Port Harcourt local government, the Riverine area, and the Upland area. My guest, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Dr. Wahab Shitu, and also the Director of Electoral College, Kunle Lawal, joining us virtually. Senior Advocate, let me come to you as we continue the conversation. And piggyback from what Ayo said while we're talking about turnout of voters, and it's quite worrying. That's why we need to keep the conversation going. As far as this is concerned, when elections like this that have low turnouts happen, do we really say this was really, of course, they will be declared winner and all of that, but in terms of the will of the people, proper will of the people, because will of the people means the people came out to vote for candidates of their choice, and then the majority had their way. So, for instance, I remember a governor, I think it's Edo State governor, that in one of his political statements, he was assuring the president is going to give him 2 million votes in 2027 election. I say it's not possible. Because if you look at the trajectory of the election in Edo State, for instance, it's just about 10–12% have voted for the governor to determine out of about 5 million people in the state and about 2 million registered voters. So assuring 2 million is just a political statement. But I'm referencing that to the effect that we see this play out across board. Politicians will come and give assurances of number of votes, and when we see the numbers, we're like, what exactly happened? So does this really represent the will of the people, this turnout, and how does it affect governance by extension? I'm going to throw that question as well to Kunle.
Well, it does not really reflect the will of the people when few people out of a very large population come out to express, to cast their votes. And that should be worrisome. And it's also an indictment on the process. That means that we are not doing more in terms of political education. We are not doing more in terms of sensitization. We are not doing more in terms of promoting awareness. So all the agencies that are supposed, to assist in delivery on this process must, raise their game. I'm particularly impressed lately. The National Orientation Agency, the DG, Issa Onilu, is doing a lot of work. But I think more of this work should be focused on sensitizing the people to come out during elections. The National Orientation Agency, the various media houses, both electronic and, the print, the political parties.
It has anything to do with what Mr. Lawal said the other time when he said that maybe because we haven't really escaped from our military past.
Well, there are a combination of factors is responsible. We cannot just say this is one particular factor responsible. I think the reality is that people are disenchanted. Some elements are disenchanted with the process. I mean, what has happened in the aftermath of elections in terms of delivery on governance. People are not, and the people are suffering too in some areas. They carry this over to what is going to happen? We must change that narrative. That it is only when you participate in the process that you are able to influence policies, and that you are able to also, raise your voice. To monitor those who are elected by you. So you don't allow disenchantment to stop you from engaging the process. You don't sit down, look, and then criticize policies because you have not all along been part of the process. So I think we should redirect our mindsets. We should, and all of us here, you are playing that role now. What you are doing here is also very important. Dedicating 4 hours of your time. that means you are not even thinking of the profit motive. Because whether you like it or not, channels is not set up for charity. But at least you know that it's also important for you to contribute to the governance process in order for you to be able to effectively deliver on your obligations. That should be the attitude. I think, you understand me? That should be the attitude. Political parties have a role to play. You know, electoral bodies have a role to play. You know, citizens themselves too have a role to play. NGOs have a role to play. And like what Mr. Lawal of the Electoral, you know, college is doing, is a public service, you know, duty. All of us must take ownership of the process. It's beyond just electoral bodies, because it's about our destiny, it's about our country, and then we must not sit down, look, and then allow things to degenerate. In political office holders too must not just come to the people when they need them for elections. And then after election, then we start carrying on as if they are, you understand me? Accessibility, they should connect with the people. Constituency projects must, you know, reach out to the people. You know, I see some of them doing a lot in terms of, you know, delivery on democracy dividends. But a lot more still must be done so that people can feel the impact of governance and then take ownership of the process.
Let me take it to Mr. Lawal. Mr. Lawal, similar question. I'm trying to dig deep into the issue of this will of the people. Whoever is elected, whether he was elected by a majority of just one, maybe 10 people voted him or 20 people, he said, I have the mandate of the people. The mandate of the people.
Can you be kind? A majority of one.
Mr. Lawal, I know you understand my question. Just help us out here. This will of the people against voter apathy.
The last time Nigeria had, let's say, a president who was by the will of the people, which you can say is a majority of participation in election above 50%, was 2015. Post 2015, we've been dropping below 20-something%, now as low as 24-25%. When you're at gubernatorial level, that's running for governor of a state, the election participation drops to about range of 18 to 21% in some states. When you get to local government election, you're down below 7%. No government section in Nigeria represents the exact will of the population. But that is to say, in a democracy, it's the people that come out that determine who is in power. And I think this is where Nigerians miss it. And in all my election experience, results can only be tampered with when you are not fully around for your elections. Meaning, if a polling unit has, give or take, 700 people, the polling unit's results will remain the same if 650 people came out. If 100 people came out, it gives them a disparity of 600 votes to alter. And I've seen this I've seen this happen in separate elections. Democracy only stands for the people that come out. But here's a conversation, like what we do at the Electoral College. We feel that a lot of Nigerians voter apathy is also because the people do not know. So many Nigerians do not even know. The easiest people to hold accountable are the local government. Why? Because they do not have immunity. The Constitution does not provide immunity for them. Meaning that if they touch either their federal allocation or their IJR and you take the case to court, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same state using the Nigerian factor. Another state, that would probably be FCT. They can go to jail. But we don't even know that. Now, like the Sam said in the studio, there are lots of factors that clearly come together. For me, the highest is political illiteracy. The fact we do not even know what to demand. We don't even know the function of local government. We are not, we're so distant from it. And I don't know why. There's so much money. I think in 2024 alone, over 2.33 trillion, 2.33 trillion was spent on local governments alone, and we can't account for it. So the will of the people is always on the basis of how politically educated they are. That's how I choose to define it. So if you do not understand the powers of a particular position, why would you even participate? That's why we have below 10%. The people also doubt how powerful a governor is. They know a governor is powerful, but restricted to their collective view of power in Nigeria. That's why elections dropped to below 20% when it comes to gubernatorial elections. The only office we believe in is the president. And even though we have 93 million registered voters as of last check, we cannot account for 30 million voters in the presidential election. So for me, the biggest problem is political illiteracy. And when you talk about political illiteracy, most people will say at the grassroots. No, I even believe that the most political illiterate people in Nigeria are what you term the middle class. And the middle class in politics are those who, of course, have passed secondary school leaving certificate to professors and etc. To me, they are the most political illiterate bunch. And we've done our studies. I'm not saying this because I just want to say it. I'm saying it because they rarely understand what it takes in political process, who does what, how it's being done, and how it's supposed to affect them. Most of us demand funny things from the legislature, and we're not even supposed to demand things that we are. Constituency projects, I believe there's no part of the Constitution that validates that. But that's what we demand from our National Assembly instead of demanding laws and oversight on the executive. So you see where the problem lies. Massively, it is political literacy. I think that's what's responsible for the fact that we have voter apathy, and eventually our government does not represent the will of people.
Interesting perspectives, Mr. Lawal. But today, while we are addressing the cogent issues and everything, today is a day that we have to give attention to. Whether people vote or not, Dr. Shitu, local government chairmen
will emerge.
Councillors will emerge. And to something that you said earlier about us challenging the system, attracting the right set of people. Let's say this is our repentance period, okay? That chairmen will emerge, councillors will emerge, whether you voted for them or not, and they will administer your resources. They are your resources, whether you know it is yours or not. In terms of now testing the process and pressuring the process to begin to attract the right quality of people, what do you think should follow? I know that Jeffrey is inching for post-election activities, BVAS, transfer of election votes and all of that. What are your expectations? How do you think people can begin to pressure the system, test the system, as we say, so that we can begin to attract the right set of people going?
Well, I think people can provide oversight in terms of monitoring. Now that the local government council is not just local government council of yesteryears ago, they are in charge of very, very huge budgets. A lot of funds are now coming directly to local government council. That's the effect of the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. So the local government now is big enterprise. You understand me? So people should constitute themselves into committees, into groups, into pressure outlets to oversee what is going on there. I'm from Ofa, local government in Kwara State. And I think, and we have a platform, the Ofa Descendant platform. And every time you see issues relating to how our local government is governed being discussed. In fact, if you see people coming out with postings that look how much, in fact, they even post to the platforms what is received by the council chairman, and then what is done. And you see the local government chairman too. trying to justify what he is doing in terms of projects here, assets here, so people are aware that a lot of money is coming into the local government, and they are interested in how these monies are being, expended. That is what should happen, and that is why you see a lot of development taking place, for local government, for instance. And I'm not saying that just to boast. That's the first community grammar, grammar school in the entire northern Nigeria came from Ofa. And the people are really, people that you should take ownership of what is going on there. Yeah, the chairman is there to represent us. He's there to deliver to the local government. He must be accountable to us. And we must get him to be accountable to us. Because the resources that is put under his care is our collective commonwealth. You understand what I'm saying? And that's how people should see it. I'm in Lagos here. I take interest in what's going on in my local government. Everybody should take interest in what is going on there. In terms of services. And then you should also highlight areas of specific needs of the people, what they need. So that, everybody's, they are put constantly on their toes.
Which actually, hardly happens, because people just see projects that they don't, sometimes it's like, who asked you? Anyway, Mr. Lawal, let me ask you this question. Yeah. One of the things that a number of people might be looking at now, and I'm sure it's something you are perhaps also equally concerned about, is how friendly the design of our electoral processes are for young people. Given that the percentage of voters that we have, they are way more than 50%. Young people are way more than 50% in the voting public that Nigeria has today. In terms of the design of the electoral process, do you think it is something, do you think it needs work so that it can appeal more to the young people? Or what's your take?
Well, first, I would like to say how the channels statistically bring people from the same local government. But we'll have this conversation.
You're from the same local government.
You will tell us. To young people. Yes, what we do at the Electoral College, we've tried to ensure that we kind of make politics inviting, interesting. We've tried to, make a few things, that, would seem attractive, that they want to read, that they want to pay attention to. We have an ebook that, tries to make the whole process more inviting. I would say a lot of us have to do a lot in this regard. Now, be it media, be it government organizations, like you mentioned, the National Orientation Agency, INEC itself, and then CSOs and NGOs like ourselves, etc., need to do more in bringing this, because young people actually make up 65% of our voting population. Right now, as of 2027, they are going to even make very close to 70% of our voting population. But what's shocking to understand is that they are even one of the least sectors we are looking at, those who actually participate in elections. So if 70% of us are really not concerned about elections, and there is a problem. And the only way to try to break this is we've tried to interface, tried to work with, things in the entertainment industry, bring in political literacy conversations to people that they look up to, and, they try to want to listen to, have to get them into those conversations. We've also looked at mainstreaming, like the work the Electoral College does. We're looking at streaming into movies, actualities about the process. Because the Nigerian movie industry has kind of, has turned, no offense to them, but has turned almost everything political into a horror movie. We are trying to demystify that, working with a few producers, trying to show the real process, so that subconsciously they are being educated. A lot of more work will be put into this by a lot of more, but they are critical to even getting these local governments right, because they should be the ones running for councillor. They should be that under 35. They should be the ones running for councillor. They should be the ones who are local government chairman. They should be the ones participating. In short, this is their election. And to see them not even participate, see them not even part of the process, it's highly a big question we need to ask of our democracy.
Let me come to you. The first schedule of the Constitution clearly states
the functions.
The function of the local government. And if you look at the schedule, you see that when I look at these provisions, I tell myself, literally the states have usurped some of these responsibilities. Yes. So don't you think that this usurping of responsibility by the state is really why people are not bothered about this? Because they just feel that local government, apart from the civil servants that are there, is just to empower the boys. Put your boys so that when election comes, because they will help you win election as governor or whatever. And then you also see a situation where, if not for the Supreme Court judgment that is still yet to be implemented effectively the way we expect it to be implemented, governors control the funds of local government at their whims and caprices. Not all of them do. Some don't do it. But if you look at that first schedule and look at what they do, provision and maintenance of primary health, primary adult vocational education, development of agriculture and natural resources other than exploitation of materials, provision and maintenance of health services. There isn't the control and regulation of outdoor advertising and hoarding. Maybe all this, is it last time? I've forgotten what they do. Restaurant, bakeries. There are so many things here that if you look at what some of these basic things they do, states have taken over.
States cannot lawfully take over.
But they have unlawfully taken over.
So that is why we should.
For instance, control and regulation of outdoor advertising.
Yes.
It is not controlled by the state, by the local governments. That is what the
it's wrong. You see, that's
signed and advertising agencies of some state governments now do.
That should be the focus of the advocacy. The advocacy should focus on this. You see, some of these functions, that's what the point I wanted to make, and you just say you preempted me. We should, perhaps the advocacy should say, we should now get people to be aware about the functions earmarked for local government council by the Constitution. Some people don't know what the local government councils are supposed to do.
I beg to differ, sir.
Okay.
And here is why. The laws, this signage and advertising agency thing, for instance, are made by the state houses of assembly, who have superintendent power over the local government's administrations. And the constitution, not just the law, says the control and regulation of outdoor advertising is the responsibility of the local government administrations. And here we are. Who appoints whoever is heading the signage and advertising agency of a good number of states in Nigeria?
I agree with you. I think that still comes to what I said earlier. That if we want to practice democracy, then we should practice democracy by respect for the rule of law. I said so. So if we were to, and the respect of the rule of law encompasses primarily respect for the Constitution. When you claim to be practicing democracy, constitutional democracy, and you are not respecting the provisions of the Constitution, then you are not practicing democracy.
Well, there's democracy at play in Rivers State today. And I heard one of our colleagues is at...
Yes, Leonard Sek, it's not as if we want to cut you. You know, we're touching base. Kunle will also come to you in just a moment, because I know you're very passionate about this as well. Let's get to our correspondent in Port Harcourt, Kumbi. She is in Rumo Precom. That is the local government of the... Obiakpo is a local government, but that's a community that Nyesom Wiki, the FCT minister, comes from, Rumo Precom. Kumbi, good morning, I think is in order. Tell us what's going on where you are. All right, Kumbi, if you can hear me, I just wanted you to give us an update of what is happening. As the minister come out to vote, what exactly is happening? Oh dear. Well, we'll try to establish connection
Right here at Rime Precom Ward 9, Unit 007. And as you can see right behind me, the officials are actually trying to prepare for the voting that would commence shortly. They arrived some minutes past 9:26 a.m. and they're still trying to set up. As of now, voting hasn't commenced, and we've also seen security operatives around this polling unit, and a handful of voter observers are also here to monitor activities at this polling unit. So right now, everything is calm. Voting hasn't started, but we're expecting that these activities will kick off, as the day, goes by.
All right, Kumbi, I wanted to find out from you, is that the polling unit the FCT minister is expected to vote later on in the day whenever it comes out?
Yes, the FCT minister is actually expected to vote here. We're still waiting for his arrival, for him to come and, cast his vote at this polling unit. But for now, voting hasn't started, like I said earlier, and we're just waiting for everything to, come and take place as expected in this polling unit.
All right. Thank you, Kumbi. We'll touch base with you. As soon as that starts happening, I'm sure you will let us know so we can come to you and be part of that whole exercise, because there are a couple of other persons. But we'll come back to the studio. Okay, maybe, Kumbi, you walk us through. I can see the camera zooming in. I'm not sure, but tell me, what exactly are you telling us?
All right, so we would actually speak to one of the electoral officials right now who is still trying to prepare the materials for voters to cast their vote. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay, please, can you tell us your name?
Ichenwa Justice.
All right, we noticed that you came like 9:28 a.m. and you're still trying to, prepare the materials here. But what are you really expecting from this day?
My job here is just to make sure everything goes smoothly and people vote according to their parties. That's just it.
All right. Do you have enough materials for voters to actually, exercise their franchise?
Yes, I have enough voters because I still have their names and orders for me to attend to them.
How many number of voters are registered at this polling unit?
I can't say at the moment.
You don't have the records?
I have the records, but I have other jobs doing. So anyone that comes, I checked and the person registered because I still have enough paper for them here to register.
Okay. Well, can you give us an estimate?
I can't give you that, ma'am.
But the number of voters registered, you still don't have that figure as well?
Because I just came into this polling unit, so I'm still on my records. Which you can see, I'm making the stamps for them to register, so I can't go there for now, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. So we'll be monitoring activities at this polling unit, and we'll definitely report back accordingly. Back to you, Jeffrey.
All right, Kumbi, just before I let you go, we'll try and get the number of voters in that polling unit, but that's quite critical. But before we let you go, I want you to find out from him or whoever is assisting him, how are they voting? Are they using BVAS? At least for the national election state, we're clear on BVAS will help us determine the number of registered voters so that we don't have overvoting and the shenanigans that happen in election. So if there is no BVAS being used, biometrics to determine who is an authentic voter at that polling unit, and determining, avoid rigging and all of that, how would they be able to assure credibility of the exercise? Just help us find out about whether they're using BVAS or not.
Okay, so let me go back to the electoral official. Would like to know, sir, are there beavers here? Because we can't see anything currently. We just see that there are papers and it's the manual process.
It's just the manual process.
So you're not making use of beavers here at this polling unit?
No.
Why is that though? Because it's expected that beavers is used, during the election.
Depending on what they provide for the election, that's what we are going to use at the polling units.
Okay, so it wasn't provided, beavers wasn't provided for this polling unit?
It wasn't provided, generally.
Thank you so much. So, like you said, there's no beavers here. We only can see the manual process, which is the paper stamp, where they put the ink and then they stamp. So, we expect that this polling unit actually sees a lot of voters come by, because right now we haven't seen anyone even waiting for the officials to finish the process that they've started. But however it is, we'll be on ground to, monitor activities here.
All right, great job. Kumbi will come back to you as soon as we get further details from you. But back here in our studios, Leonard Silk, let me go to Kunle. Kunle, these are some of the issues we raise, for state elections, federal elections. We're used to using beavers, but you have been on ground. How do we really assure or get a credible exercise when we can't use electronic voting, or not electronic vote, beavers, for instance, for purposes of accreditation and the entire thing? Because we know how it works with the other elections. You go, you're verified, you're accredited with the beavers. The beavers captures how many people showed up to vote. So whatever happens above the number that is on the beavers, that election, that polling unit is cancelled. But now that we don't have all of that, how do they walk around local government elections? Doesn't this create room for, malpractice?
You see, earlier in the conversation, I stated clearly that INEC needs to take over state elections, and this is one of the anomalies I was talking about. You cannot successfully verify on ground the exact. You heard him in the interview. How many people are in this polling unit? He could not give you that number. He could not. He just had names. He's going to cross-check and PVC numbers, which he's going to cross-check. That is not a viable method of how would I put it, of voting. Whether we like it or not, Nigeria must begin to look at the way to tie voters' card to NIN, whether we like it or not, eventually, to solve these anomalies, so that maybe they have access to the NIN portal for state elections. And what I'm more critical with taking the election totally to INEC, and that's because of intentional supremacy of the incumbent ruling party and their powers on state electoral commissions. So I've never really thought local government elections based on what's on ground are really verifiable with voters, and that's why you have so many anomalies with LG elections. It's normally complicated. I know you guys are concentrating on Obiapo, but if there's anything I've learned from local government elections, participation in more rural areas are better than participation in dense areas. So if you have a place like Obiapo or Port Harcourt, major places, voting turnout is normally scary, or more boost. And but if you go to into the hinterlands, into remote areas, voter turnout is usually better in such areas than in suburban areas.
And that should be a concern. Well, we're still talking. Well, by the way, Mr. Lawa, we are not really focusing on one particular local government, irrespective of whoever it is. Every Nigerian, in the eye of the law, as the learned Sikh will say, in the eye of the law, every Nigerian is equal. Isn't that the case, sir?
That's
okay. Now, given that, you are told us here, you've advised that Nigerians should begin to interrogate the processes, irrespective of whatever the outcome is today. Now, there's something the First Lady said, re-echoing something the President had often said, even before he became President. Power is not served a la carte. You have to take it. Now, people in power, even as low, well, forgive me my use of the term, as a councillor, don't just want to relinquish it. Consequently, sometimes some people, when you just look them in the eye and ask them some questions, they are up in arms. How do people safely interrogate this process in the interest of our nation?
Thank you. I think there should be a change of mindset, attitudinal chemistry on the part of political office holders. First, they need to change their own mindset to recognize that they are supposed to be servants of the people and not masters of the people. When you are elected into a public office, you are elected as a servant. The number one public servant that we have in the country is the president. And all other office holders are also servants. If they see themselves as servants, then they will make it, they will then realize that granting access to people to see them is not a privilege, it's a right. That's the first thing. Secondly, they should also know that they are elected to provide service to the people. And when they provide that service, they are not doing the people a favor. They are simply fulfilling the obligation of their mandate. So it should be easy for people, subject to compliance with established protocols, to assess their chairman, to assess their councillors, to assess their governors.
But you said something about change of mindset.
Yes.
And it goes to what Mr. Lawal also said the other time.
Yes.
How does government communicate? But more importantly, how do the people communicate with the people that are governing them, so to speak?
Yes.
Here is why I asked the question. And Jeffrey will probably have, affirm this as well. The generational communication is at an all-time state of confusion, if I can put it that way. Because when you get online and you read some things, you're wondering who is talking to who and what is this person essentially saying. Unfortunately, and in most cases, again, unfortunately, many people who will be interested in being government official at any of these, local government or whatever, they are not the average Gen Zs, as Jeffrey would say. They are people perhaps a little older. The way they communicate is different from the way the Gen Z communicates. Unfortunately, as you and Mr. Lawal have said, we seem to have been quote-unquote drugged to only focus on the federal government and the state governments. And now you are calling for a change of mindset.
Yes.
And this change of mindset has to be across board.
Across the board, yes.
How do we get that? Speaking particularly to young people, because in another 10 years from now, the 20-year-old Gen Z will still be Gen Z, but he's 30. In another 20 years, the 20-year-old is 40, and he is no longer the Gen Z of today. So how do we begin this migration, this mindset migration, in a way that it is sustainable, so that we don't find ourselves in this quagmire that we're in right now?
Okay. First of all, government must have, at all levels, must be committed to certain value standards. You understand me? Certain, code of ethical and political behavior. Now, you then appoint people across, divisions who can effectively communicate. You spoke about Gen Zs. Appoint one of them who understand their language, who understand their chemistry, to communicate with them. You don't understand what I'm saying? Yeah. What is lacking essentially is that if you find one of your own as your representative in government, look for all the interest groups and then get people who understand their own language, their own chemistry, their own attitude.
And to communicate with them.
Yes.
Mr. Lawal, do you think that will work?
Good day.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Do you think that council will work?
It might. You know, with everything, there's always the, how would I put it, the Nigerian factor, which we must be afraid of sometimes. And the way I see it, I think the real issue, even if you're going to look at, let's say, our elections or any other parameter, rule of law, whatever, is that most of us, and this is what I critically think, I could be wrong, but this is what I critically think. Most of us are not Nigerians first before we're any other thing. So therein lies our problem. We do not think of a collective identity. We do not operate within a collective prison. And that's what always makes every attempt in which we try to do things in Nigeria kind of, you know, tilt us to a biased angle or to a particular position.
Okay, so the question still goes, and I'm not sure whether you understand what I have said. How does it help the system for instance, Dr. Wahab Shitu to engage 20-year-old Gen Z as chairman of local government, to engage a 20-year-old Gen Z as a spokesperson when both of them probably don't even understand each other's language?
I think there is a common language, and the common language is development. Now, we concentrate so much on trying to speak to Gen Z. Now, if you provided what was available by local government, okay, what are you in charge of? You ensure markets are well sanitized. The parts of the road down their jurisdiction you can handle. Infrastructure-wise, local government brings in, let's say, a solar center for youth, a solar-powered center for youth with internet, and they're teaching them coding. You have already transmitted development to them. The best language in governance is action, or in physical government. So wondering about whether they can converse as a local government chairman to a Gen Z. For me, what are you conversing about? Telling him the functions of a local government or telling him what you intend to do? I prefer the best action being delivery on your deliverables as the best conversation. That's what I would think is a conversation.
We're totally out of time, but I must give you 10 seconds to just your closing thoughts. Lenny said.
I think now that greater funds are now being delivered directly to local government councils, and they are sufficiently empowered to be able to, function effectively. Local government, councils will now be used as the engine to drive our environmental process. Everybody should be concerned about what is going on about local government councils. And finally, I think we should communicate more effectively on the functions of local government councils to Nigerians, so that everybody is aware of what local government councils are set up to do. And we should monitor and deliver oversight to ensure they deliver their mandate.
All right, fantastic. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Dr. Wahab Shitu, always coming through whenever we call. Thank you so much for coming on the program and helping us make sense of what is playing out in Rivers as well as other issues. Kule Lawal of the Executive Director at Electoral College. Thank you, sir, as well for coming on the program. We appreciate you.